MacKenzie Price, welcome to Momshine. I'm so excited to have you here and talk about the future of education. My first question for you, and I'll let you introduce yourself quickly to the audience, but thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Alicia. I'm super excited. And anything that says Momshine, I think is awesome because I think we need to, let's shine each other up. Let's glow each other up, right?
Yes, that's actually the point of the show. I love it. Let's shine together, support each other. And I know you're supporting so many moms out there. And how you got started, you saw a broken education system. I think a lot of us are looking at education today kind of thinking, what's going on? What was your aha moment that led you to the creation of this amazing platform called 2 Hour Learning?
Well, I'll start by saying I was one of those kids growing up that was really good at school. I knew how to get A's, but I hated school. And so I was so excited when I finally graduated from college. I literally remember putting a tap on my head and saying, I'm done. I'm never going to school again. I was one of those people who would walk around school and I'd ask the teachers, like, wait, you actually chose to work in a school? Like, you want to come to school every day? Because I very much looked at school as just compulsory, like you got to get through it. So then when it was time for my girls to go to school, my husband and I sent them down the street to our local public school district, which is considered one of the very best in Texas. And, it was time for them to go on their school journey. And I just remember each of my girls, when I sent them off, they were like these bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, like happy kids that were just like, oh, I get to go to school and I'm going to ride the school bus and I'm, going to make friends and I'm going to learn. And then just so quickly, I saw like the passion and the fire just sort of start to kind of like dial its way down over time. But I was also noticing that it was just so hard for my kids to get any sort of personalized attention. I remember my mother gave my oldest daughter a book on the American Revolution when she was in second grade, and she got really interested. And so I went to the teacher and said, hey, she's really interested in the American Revolution. Is there something we could do? And she said, well, unfortunately, that's not part of the curriculum. So it's not anything we can spend time on in school. And it was just like, okay, well, that's a bummer. Anyways, one day my daughter and I were having a conversation. She was in second grade and she said, I don't want to go to school tomorrow. I said, what do you mean you love school?
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she just said, school is so boring. And I just had this moment of like, oh my gosh, they have taken a kid in 2.5 years who was tailor-made to want to love school, and that passion has been wiped away. And I thought back to myself and I remembered how much I didn't like school, and yet I was even a success story, right? Because I knew how to play the game.
Right.
And I thought, I can't subject her to this for the next several years. And what if my kids also become the kind of kids who decide they don't want to play the school game, and they really disengage? It just wasn't right. It was about a different model of education, and that teacher in front of the classroom model that we've had for 200 years, it doesn't work. It's ineffective. It doesn't meet students where they're at. It's very challenging for these teachers to try to do. It's an impossible job. It's no wonder that teachers are leaving the field in droves and reporting burnout and so much challenge.
I find it so relatable as a mom. We kind of see a lot of ourselves in our kids. So you saw your child have your same journey of not loving it. Our schools today move at the pace of the middle. And we talked about this leading up to the interview, and I feel like our listeners will be able to relate to that. And it's leaving a lot of neurodivergent learners behind, or everybody kind of learns at their own pace, their own way, and it isn't personalized, right? And we have all this incredible technology. It should be. So tell me why, and what do you talk to parents about? Why is this one size fits all, round hole, square peg not working for a lot of our children?
Well, to be clear, it's not just not working for neurodivergent kids, or it's not just teaching the middle. It's actually hitting very, very few students right now, right? Your kids who are advanced are bored stiff. They already understand the material. They could be years ahead, but they're not. And unfortunately, that's becoming less and less of an issue because our education is getting so bad that actually most kids are struggling, right, and have holes in knowledge. And, in a time-based system, when a teacher explains a concept, at the end of that explanation, she's got to move forward, no matter if a kid understands it or if they already knew it to begin with. So it's really not working. We're seeing that in results. Our education results continue to get worse and worse. California, where you live, is a great example. They put out a big press release a year ago saying, great news, grades have never been higher. Well, meanwhile, test scores have never been lower. Here's the beautiful thing about technology and what AI is enabling is in our models of schools, we love standardized testing because what it does is it provides us with information and feedback on what a student knows and doesn't know, and then it allows us to go in and fill those holes and gaps in knowledge.
Right.
So we can take that fifth grade kid who maybe has some second and third and fourth grade knowledge gaps, and we can fill them.
Yeah.
And we can take that fifth grade kid who could be working at eighth grade level, math, and allow him to do that. And they can do that all while still hanging out right next to their buddies, that are the same age and doing this.
Amazing.
There's no, I got to move to the class 2 grades up because I'm advanced. And by the way, if you get too advanced, you got to just chill out. Or, I'm destined for a life of not really understanding my academics because I missed some fast math facts in second and third grade. And how in the world am I going to understand algebra when I'm in high school or get to calculus, right? It's time for change. And,
Yeah.
That's what I knew. And so when my girls were in third and first grade, which was 10 years ago, I knew that we could use adaptive apps to be able to provide that level and pace of academic information that met each student where they were.
Yeah.
And then I also knew it doesn't take all day to do that, right? You don't need to sit in class from 8:30 to 3 o'clock every day doing 45 minutes of math and 45 minutes of science and 45 minutes of language arts and a quick break, or a little bit of recess.
I find some of the testing as a mom, and maybe our listeners can agree, to deflate some kids' egos and deflate their confidence, more importantly, in school, in learning, and again, bring the fun back to it so that they become lifelong learners and lifelong, readers. And yeah, I think there is a lot of it, the ability to personalize it and make it fun. And I want to touch on another point with you, MacKenzie, because you use technology within your schools to create this adaptive approach, and it's working a lot better than other approaches, and it's reducing screen time. Mm-hmm. But I find with all the depression rates that we're seeing, especially among teens, tell our listener about that and that model of less screen time when you apply personalized technology to education.
Well, I think there's a huge difference between doom scrolling TikTok all day or playing hours of video games or watching YouTube and getting a completely engaging one-to-one learning experience that is literally going at the same pace that a kid's brain can handle. Yeah. And it's like helping make sure they understand it. One of the things that we firmly believe is that competence leads to confidence. When you understand math, you're kind of like, you like math, right? When you don't understand it, you're like, I'm dumb. I'm not a math person. I hate math. Why? What's the point of it? Or, why do I need to learn this? And so I think there's so much self-esteem and confidence that does come when we can take kids who come into us in the 10th percentile and within 1 year they're at 50th percentile and within 2 years they're in the 90th percentile. That kid all of a sudden isn't like, wow, I'm smart. And if in third grade a kid is a C student, their chances of graduating high school, go down. Their chances of going to a 4-year college go down.
Right.
And the fact that we put labels on kids at age 8 or 9, like, and I see this all the time, and it's very sad. But I'll talk to parents who will say, well, my kid's not like the sharpest knife in the drawer. My kid's not really a school kid. My kid's not a bookworm or an academic. And I believe kids are limitless, and a school's job is to build an environment that unlocks that potential. And, there's so
Agreed.
much that you can do when you personalize learning to help that kid thrive. And then give them time to go do the things that they love and are interested in, help them learn life skills.
Yeah.
And that's what our schools do is we're done with our academics, by lunchtime. And then all afternoon, our kids are able to do these super fun project-based workshops with group time. And so they end up getting way more socialization than a kid in standard school, which, let's think about that. A lot of our idea of socialization is you and I are sitting in class together, maybe next to each other, and we're generally supposed to be kind of quiet, but we're like looking at each other. Is that really that much socialization, right? And
Right.
what we do instead is, I think every parent would agree, like socialization is so critical, but think about the way we do it in traditional school. We just throw kids in and say, sink or swim, hope it goes well, hope you figure out your place in the totem pole, hope you are able to deal with bullies or mean girls, hope you don't become a bully or mean girl yourself, like all of those things.
Right.
And what we have time to do during our school days is actually provide like socialization training, like how to be interested and how to be interesting. In our middle school, we do a Mean Girls Cafeteria workshop where
I love that title.
Yeah, think about that movie, right? And how intimidating that was. And instead, we help kids learn how to like get connected with other kids, how to engage in conversation, how to be interesting and interested in others, how to read body language, how to, just do all of those types of things that help kids be successful.
I mean,
and I think that's what leads.
That is an incredible example. I want to pause there because I do feel like they're looking at social media learning. So, that is not a way to learn socialization. So when you talk about life skills and real life examples and playing that out with kids, I feel like that is where the real amazing stuff in learning exists.
It absolutely is. And the other thing, when we think about screen time, here's the thing. Social media, screens, technology, it's here to stay. What we need to do is teach people how to use it as a great tool.
Exactly.
And so one of the things we focus on is we teach our young people how to be contributors and creators, not consumers, right?
Yes.
And, think about middle school. It's such a time where kids are trying to find that place where they fit in. They're trying to jump into a group and a community. What we do at our middle school is, we start every year out with an Ikigai workshop, which is basically a values workshop where you find out what are your values, what do you care about.
Ikigai, just for our listeners, because I came across this as well, only through consumption of podcasts, and I listen to a ton of them. So tell our listeners what Ikigai is, because I think it's so fascinating.
So Ikigai is this, it's kind of a Japanese workshop where you're figuring out your values and your priorities. You're also figuring out the things that you love, that you're also talented at, that can benefit the world, right? So it's figuring out what that Venn diagram is that a kid can go. And so it enables our young people to like sit down and think like, what do I care about? Like, who do I want to be? What are the priorities I have? What are the values I want to be? And instead of just showing up and getting inundated with the values that are put on you by social media, by your school culture, whatever it is, like, let's give some time. We follow that up with a workshop called 168 Hours, where we have kids track the 168 hours of their week and how they spend their time.
Wow.
And I'll tell you what, adults should do this too, which is when you look back and say, gosh, out of 168 hours, I spend X hours on social media or playing video games or, doing nothing or whatever it is.
Right.
And
assess your time.
Here's things I could be doing and ways I can spend. And when we give kids that, first of all, just awareness and then sense of ownership and agency over the fact that, like, this is my life and I have the ability to build something out and create a vision for what I want to do. Suddenly we're creating young people who are able to say, you know what, maybe I don't want to just play Fortnite all day. Maybe I want to code and build my own video game. And I want to host a Fortnite tournament where I do, shoutcasting and improve my public speaking skills, right? Or I want to create a social media channel that provides, a good, influence. And actually, that's happened with my own daughter, and part of what created this philosophy we have at our schools. When my youngest daughter was 13, she begged me to get on TikTok. And I had heard all the things about, no, TikTok's dangerous and it's bad and it's unhealthy.
I have resisted as well.
Did you?
I resisted. As long as possible. I have dabbled in it a little bit, I will say, in the last 6 months or so. Mm-hmm. But a psychologist I've had on here said it's important for your kids to kind of show you what they're learning and come at it with curiosity, because I mean, I don't think TikTok's going anywhere. I'll believe it is whenever that happens, but I won't believe it till I see it. I think it's going to be a part of our culture, part of our kids' culture. And the more we can come at it with curiosity, and that's the thing with schools embracing AI, is I feel like they're still resisting it so much. And as parents, the more we're in the know with how our kids are learning and what they're consuming, I mean, the better we can coach them, right? So
Absolutely.
What do you think is holding the public school systems or education system in general back? Is it funding? Is it fear?
No.
Bureaucracy?
I'm going to say something that people don't like, but it's not a funding issue. We have had more and more school funding, and we're not seeing better results. Everyone thinks it's the same things, which is we need more funding, we need better teacher training, we need lower student-teacher ratios. Again, all of those things are just trying to throw more money at the same problem, and the problem is a model issue. Right? No matter how well trained a teacher is, no matter how well funded they are, it's still hard to take a class of, I don't care if a teacher has 5 kids in her classroom, which, by the way, is impossible to do. There's no world where we can provide public education where we have a highly trained, really skilled, ambitious, excited, engaged teacher for, a kid with, or a five kid classroom.
Yeah,
that's never going to happen.
Work. We don't have enough staff.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's only getting worse. And so I think there is a lot of bureaucracy. I also think what I've noticed is I've had a lot of people in the public sphere reach out to me, and I think these are people who are dedicated, caring people. But for some reason, when the system gets together and these groups of people come together, it just gets to be very hard to do anything. It's one of the reasons
it's hard to move quickly. And I'll say from my personal experience for listeners, my mom worked in education, predominantly special education, for 47 years. And so I kind of absorbed a lot of how things move through her. And it's hard to create change, and it's hard to move
really
at the pace of technology.
Yeah, it is really hard. And I think people get beat down by that system. I also think, and I'm going to venture to say that, I don't know who your audience is, Alicia, but I'm going to venture to say that
busy moms everywhere.
But guess what? If they're listening to this podcast, it shows that they care about, I want to know how to help, my kids out. I'm thinking about parenting, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about those things.
Yeah.
And so I think what happens is that a lot of times we kind of go, well, I mean, school is what it is. It's what I grew up with. I mean, I turned out fine. I actually just wrote a Substack news article this week that was saying the I turned out fine is a horrible rationale for accepting, what's going on in your education system. And I also think, and from personal experience, the conversations I had with our teachers, our superintendent, our principal, where they would kind of say, well, I don't know, kids end up getting into the colleges and it works. Sure, they're a little bored now,
I mean,
but
I heard colleges
fine.
are more challenging to get into than ever before. I don't even know if my kids are going to have the opportunity to go to colleges that my husband and I went to, just because we're not at that stage of parenting yet. But there's definitely some fear around it for a lot of parents, I would say.
That is a whole other podcast that I would love to come on and tell you my philosophy. If you've got interest in how to get your kid into a great college, I have a very spiky point of view that is actually, we're getting phenomenal results for our students.
Wow.
But that's a whole different conversation.
That's a different conversation.
Yeah. People are nervous about this, and the biggest thing that I want people to understand is that using artificial intelligence and technology allows us to raise human intelligence. And it does that in 2 ways. One is it allows every single child, no matter where they're at, to be able to get a personalized education that ensures they are learning efficiently and effectively.
Wow.
It also allows our teachers to transform their role to be able to focus on motivational and emotional support, getting to know their students, being able to spend time with their students, finding out what they love, what are they interested in, when they feel challenged, what are the things they say to themselves, and how can we make sure that they've got growth mindset strategies in place, what can they do? And so it's actually, there's never been a more exciting time to be a 5-year-old or a teacher because of what we're going to see in terms of change in education. And so, for moms that are out there listening to this, just know there are options. There are schools that are coming. Now, it may not be the school that you would put your kid on the bus to go down the street to. You might have to go and find something that works better for your child. But I think that's the biggest thing.
Moms on the line are wondering, how can they start using AI at home, or where is your programming available? I mean, for some of us, we use apps to figure out, I cannot adjust to Common Core to save my life. And I know a lot of parents out there who maybe don't have math brains like me. I'm more on the creative side of thinking. Thank God for some of these apps, that even my kids at low-level education or, the early grades are showing me that I can't figure out, because they're learning it totally different than how you and I learned it growing up.
Well, that's the thing that's really beautiful is, literally at the tip of my hands, I've got access to any information that I need. And so what, we want to focus on is helping our kids become like self-driven learners who learn how to learn. So, for example, there are so many apps for kids who, maybe are doing some math stuff or reading stuff that can be tailored to their interests. The other thing is, if they're not understanding something, like if your kid is coming home from school struggling with their homework because they don't understand something, there are phenomenal YouTube videos that are out there, or even TikTok videos that explain concepts that we use.
And for our
when we get back into
what do you recommend? And is there access to the tools that you use, or so I know TikTok and YouTube have a lot readily available, but are there how did you customize learning with your kids? Because I'll sit at home and noodle over one thing that I can't find the solution to. Do you have kind of specific tools that you use?
I will tell you, if you're trying to figure out ways to supplement or augment your kids' education at home, you can go on to ChatGPT and be able to say, hey, my kid has an interest in this. Let's do something. Or let's say you're trying to get your kid to read more. Create a choose your own adventure story where your son is the main hero in the story with his 3 best friends from his soccer team, and they're doing an Avenger-style adventure, and do it at this reading level that gets him excited, right? Suddenly that kid who doesn't like to read is like, I'm now the star of my own Avengers movie, book. You can do that. There's things like that. Our schools that we have in-person full-time schools that are opening all around the country. I'm opening 25 schools throughout the country, in the next year. And so we've got schools. We've also got a homeschool program for those parents that do say, okay, I want to homeschool my kid, but I don't want to actually do the homeschooling for my kid. I want them to get this personalized education. And all of that kind of information can be found at my 2hourlearning.com thing. But the other thing that I think, the biggest challenge that we have is the challenge of time, right? And you said busy moms who are trying to figure out, like, we gotta do our jobs, we gotta get our kids to and from school, we gotta cook dinner, we gotta figure out how to keep the house clean. We got a lot of stuff going on, and I do think it's a bummer. And kids are busy too, right? Kids are in school all day, plus they're maybe doing an extracurricular activity. They're having homework to do. I do think it's so sad that there are so many families that feel like, I got to come up with another thing to augment my kids' education experience, right?
I think we all experienced that, some of us, during a global pandemic.
COVID.
To some extent.
It was absolutely terrible. Yeah, and so that's a hard thing, is when you're figuring out, and that was for me too, when my girls were little, before I started the school, I was doing things like hosting the after-school science club at my house for the neighborhood kids, and taking them to a sewing class and doing all these things, because I was like, well, I can't get it done in school, so we'll do it outside.
Right.
That
a lot
American
of us are
Revolution thing. They're doing that. And it's a hard thing. And I think what we need to do is have our families just demand more. And so one of the things that I'm doing is I've got a website called futureofeducation.net where families can go on there, and we can download toolkits that are free resources, things like what apps are best for what ages, what are some things you can do, and then also the ability to write to your legislator, write to your superintendent or your principal to say, hey, we want to see this in our schools, and kind of do that. Those are things that are coming. I've been working on this because I do want to be able to help. I use my Future of Education social media and podcasts to help people kind of see like, oh, wow, this is what's possible.
There's another way.
The vision. But then what I want to do is I want to be able to help that mom in, Wisconsin who's not going to be able to go to one of my schools, right? I want to help them with what they're doing. And so those are things that, stay tuned. I don't know when this podcast comes out, but my goal is that the futureofeducation.net website is up within the coming weeks so that parents can download resources, use apps, use AI tools. And there's so many fun things you can do. I mean, we use AI tools with our students starting at kindergarten to give them feedback on their public speaking, right? And
yes,
it turns out
my kids are in speech contests right now, and I'm like,
are they really good?
I mean, as a parent too, I don't know if other parents feel this way. It's something I feel we use our whole lives, but it is one of the scary. It's scary for every human, which is what I tell my children, but it's important to just get up there and try. But I love that. And I love the Chat GPT recommendation. I don't know why I resisted for so long. I'm a writer as well, and a lot of us writers resisted. But I was like, why? I use it now to cook dinner, just typing in an assignment that you might not be able to follow. It will clarify a lot of that for you. And the more you work with it, the smarter it gets about how you think and your brain and what works for you. It's really incredible.
No, it's absolutely great. And I think the point you kind of mentioned when we were talking about, our kids getting on social media is sit down with your kid and look at some of these tools. Like sit down and how often when you're in the middle of eating or cooking dinner and the kid's like, hey, how does this work? And you're like, I have no idea and I can't even pretend to know. But it's like, hey, let's pull up ChatGPT and let's find out what we can research, or let's go see a video on YouTube about this. And that's one of the things that I also really fundamentally believe is that we as parents should take interest in the things our kids are interested in. Maybe, I mean, there are things that I know about that in my own world, I would never care to know about. But because my girls were interested in it, I was like, okay, I'm going to dig in and I'm going to jump. My husband is probably the leading expert on Taylor Swift because he used Taylor Swift as a way to bond with the kids, right?
I love that.
And so we can find those interests. And then guess what? Like my daughter for AP Art History, she used AI to generate song lyrics in the melodies of Taylor Swift songs to memorize her AP Art History canon. And she got a 5 on her test, but she had that creative use. And, when we think about public schools, so many public schools are outlawing AI and just saying, don't use it, don't touch it.
They'll penalize you, which I think is a disservice because it, this is my personal opinion. I do feel working in technology and in the tech world that if you are not using it, if you are not understanding it and learning about it, you will fall behind. So
you will absolutely fall behind. It's here to stay, and we got to teach them how to use it well.
I want to ask you this other question. With rising tuition costs, parents are questioning whether school is worth the price. Are today's schools too expensive for the value they provide?
Are we talking K through 12 or college? K through 12?
I think that's a very interesting call out because I also was going to address that there are a lot of hiring freezes going on in universities and PhD programs. And I think overarching, I just want to know what you think about the future of traditional education with all we're talking about with AI right now. And
well, I will tell you this. I get a lot of private schools that reach out to me and they kind of whisper secretly, hey, between us, our academics are not very good. And, a lot of times there's not a lot of transparency. Again, most of the feedback is in the form of a report card that a teacher has just given a student. So who knows how that's, what they're actually doing. And I think parents, we should demand more information to understand what our kids know. We've actually done a lot of research on this, and we'll see, parents will think, hey, my kid is at grade level, and they're really not. One of the things that I often like to ask parents when I meet new parents is I'll ask if their school does any sort of MAP testing. There's a type of assessment called the NWEA MAP assessment.
Yep.
And parents will say, yes, our school uses that. And I say, do they share the reports with you? And they'll say, yeah, they share the report. And I say, how long is the report? They'll say it's a page or it's 2 pages. And then I say, you know what? Actually, those reports are like 18 pages, and they literally go into detail on which concepts your child doesn't know and what they do know. But the reason schools don't give those out to parents is because nothing changes for that kid based on the results of that. And I think parents should say, hey, we want to understand, like, how are we going and filling those holes? And here's the other thing. Let's say that your school isn't able to do that. You can help them at home to go fill those holes if you have clear information. And so it's something that we can do. But I do think that traditional education is not delivering. It's not giving good results. It's failing kids no matter where they're at, whether they're at the advanced level or they're struggling. So I do think we need to demand something more. I think in this, political climate with all the stuff that's going on with the new administration, there's all this talk about education, and is the Department of Education going to go away, and are we going to do more school choice, more state power? And, things like school choice are totally hot button political issues, but fundamentally, where I think it comes down.
Explain that more, school choice. Like, do you, I mean, I know there's a lot of hot button. I mean, all you have to do is a quick Google on this topic, and it's everywhere right now.
It is very hot button. And really what that administration is saying that they want to do is they want to give more power back to the states to make decisions. I personally think that communities know best what's happening within their own schools, right? What are they doing? So I also think that families should have the ability to find a school that serves their child's needs. And a lot of what school choice comes down to is that, certain states will give education savings accounts that families can use to, go to a private school or get tutoring or buy homeschool products or whatever it is. The other side of that is that people say, well, that takes funding away from our public schools, and it does that. And there's a lot of, by the way, just
debate.
There's a lot of debate, and it's with reason. But what I think is, I still think if a family finds an option that better serves their child's needs, they should have the ability to go and be a part of that. So I think that is something that we need to do. Now, the other thing is that, everybody believes that education should be a free right, and good education should be a free right. And unfortunately, while that would be lovely, it's not necessarily happening. And I think that there are times when families need to say, you know what, I'm going to put more of a priority where my pocketbook goes in terms of making sure my kids are getting good education. Now, I will say again, I am not an only private school person versus public school person. I'm about find the school that works for your child, right?
Yeah,
and
I think that resonates with a lot of moms on the line. We're all just trying to give our kids the best future.
Yep. And, sometimes special needs, public schools can do a great job with special needs kids. They can actually do a better job than a lot of private schools can do. So to be clear, again, it is not about private or public. It's about personalized learning and finding that. And the beautiful thing about that is as we can get more technology into the classroom, it actually does a better job of that. And so, don't be scared of screen time. Don't think that when we're talking about technology and AI, this is not COVID classroom, Zoom class.
No, this is saving teachers precious time. AI, when it's leveraged to save you time, can open up a lot more doors for all of us. Let's future cast. Let's look at the future. If AI is fully integrated into learning, what do you think education will look like in 10 years?
Well, I can tell you what it looks like at our schools, where we literally use personalized learning platform for all of our academics. So our teachers do not do any academic teaching. Their job is complete focus on motivational and emotional support, which, by the way, is critical to a successful learner. A motivated student is 90% of a great learning experience, right? And
Yep.
what it looks like at our schools is our classes are in the top 1% in the country, no matter where our kids come in. We actually, we're a private school system, but we don't assess our students' admissions based on their grades or how they've done or an IQ test or any of that kind of stuff, because really any kid can be successful if given the right level of material and the right pace. And then it's going to and it
Those
gives
are
kids
amazing
then
results, especially where
and we do that.
Yeah.
We do that in only 2 hours a day. So we give kids back the gift of time to go focus on life skills development. So in 10 years, I think there is a world where you could see kids being able to be super successful academically, having more time to pursue their interests and passions, developing life skills that they need to be successful, having experiences like internships and shadow experiences and more time to play sports and do all those types of activities, and having teachers who are able to be super effective at human connection with their kids, right? Being able to work with students in that way. And so it's really a beautiful potential future. And I don't think people should be scared of it. I think we should go running towards that. But I also think that we need to do this in a way where we're willing to throw out the things that we have viewed as sacred cows, but just don't work. Again, I think technology does a better job of teaching kids than a teacher in front of a classroom does. That doesn't mean we should have schools with no teachers. We should just
100%.
allow our teachers to focus on the human element and work on that. I read a study the other day that said K through 8 teachers get an average of about 22 seconds a day of one-on-one time with their students.
Yeah. It's not enough.
That's not what they should be doing. They don't need to be creating lesson plans and delivering lectures and grading papers and homework. What else? K through 8 kids shouldn't even do homework. They shouldn't have to do homework, right? And they don't in our schools, because you can get that done in the morning, literally in the morning. And then you can do afternoons for all those other cool things and get kids way more engagement and social time with each other and physical activity and time outside and all that kind of stuff. So there's a way to do it.
There's totally a way to do it. When you look at the U.S. ranking the lowest in global education performance based on our spending, it's staggering. And 1 in 3 U.S. students are performing, only 1 in 3 are performing at grade level in math and reading. I just think you bring up so many incredible points, MacKenzie, and a different way to think about education. So I'm sure our listeners are wondering, how can they find you? Can you give them a little information to learn more? I know you touched on some of them, but I'm sure everyone will want to get more information.
Absolutely. You can follow me on Future of Education on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook. And you can also go to alpha.school to learn about some of our schools, or 2hourlearning.com. And then Future of Education is also a podcast where we do kind of fun, interesting things. It's one, I'll tell you, just you probably are similar. I never thought I'd be a podcaster, but it's really fun to be able to talk about education with people who are really excited about it too, and so do that. So yeah, I really believe the future of education is here now, and I want people to get a glimpse of it, and I really hope that they can be a part of it too, because it's really nice here.
I love your show. I especially love that you bring kids on that have been successful with technology. So I think it gives parents real life examples of your platform at work and learning through technology, which so many of us are as adults. And if we aren't learning this stuff, we might fall behind. MacKenzie, this was so eye-opening. I've been so happy to have you on the show as a personal passion of mine, technology and education. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. And all those moms out there, just keep crushing it. You guys are awesome.